This video will provide you with a tour of the website for the Vassar College Costume Collection, built using Omeka Classic. We're starting here with the home page. You can see that there's a simple header, top navigation, a featured items slider on the left side. On the right, there's a brief section of introductory text. If we scroll down a little bit, you can see that there's a section for featured exhibits. This is currently set to show 2 featured exhibits. Now, the way this homepage is designed, you also could choose to display recently added items below that. It's currently not set up to do that, but how that's all set up is determined by settings from the admin side of things. Next, to go through the navigation, once we go out to other pages, there are 2 ways to get back to this home page. One is just by clicking on the title of the collection here, or on this menu item link to the home page. Also, to point out that there's a search box here that is a keyword search. This has some custom settings so that it will only search the costume and textile collection. There are other, as you'll see a little bit later, there are other types of items that are collected here, but this has been set up since the primary focus of the collection is the costume objects in the collection. That's what this keyword box, search box, is set to search. We'll see from other places how you can actually do an advanced search and search the other collections. So yeah, let's talk through these other navigation items. So first, let's click on the collection navigation. And here you can actually see that it's showing you a browse items page and showing 708 total items in this particular instance on this day that we're searching it. Notice that it's showing us at the top here that this is filtering. It's not showing us all the items in the entire website, but it's focused on the collection of costumes and textiles. Again, that's because that's the focus of what most users of this collection are looking for. It's automatically set up to search, to filter and only show the items from the costumes and textiles collection. If I were to click on Browse All, you would see that, in fact, once we add in other kinds of materials, there are many others here. Next, over to the right of that, we can see that there's a Browse by Tag function. There are many, many, many tags in here now because this is used by students, by faculty for lots of different projects. And so you'll see some students' names in here, names or nicknames for classes in here where tags have been used to sort and group different items together. These are listed in alphabetical order so that you can, if you know you're looking for a particular tag but you can't quite remember exactly how it's spelled or something, you could find it here. Next over is the search items. This is the advanced search. So here you could do a keyword search that would be searching all of the items, not just the costumes and textiles collection, but you also can search by specific fields. For example, you could search for specific medium, something like that, and other options that you see here. You could narrow it to different collections, etc., etc. There is a browse map feature. This is currently not being used, so it's not showing you anything too helpful right now. But when it is in use, this will show labels on the map for items that have been associated with specific locations. And then last in this sub-navigation is the browse subjects. This is basically a list of, you might consider them facets, different fields that are used within the collection, and you can see all the values available for these. So for example, if we start with creator right here at the top, we can see this index, but also go down and see here are all the different creators listed, and we can see that, for example, Abercrombie & Fitch has 4 different entries. If we click on that, we'll see the results of all those 4 entries. So that's another kind of quick way for particular types of research to see all the items in the collection that have certain kinds of things in common. Once you get search results like this, or if you start, if you're on the browse all or browsing the main collection page, you're going to see that in this list page, each item is displayed with a title, a square thumbnail. Where there is data available, it will list a creator, a date if it's available, a snippet of the description, and any tags that have been assigned to it. So in this case, these particular things, we're not so much seeing dates. There have been tags that have been assigned, but let's go back to, if we click back on collection, we can see here that are some that are more firmly dated, and we can see that that is showing up here. I will point out, if we scroll back up here, that these are, by default, these are sorted so that the most recently added item, the newest thing to the collection, will be at the top. But there are these other options to sort by title, by creator, and again, the default would be by date added with the most recent first. I want to point out that once you're in any of these parts that have these search results, one of the features of this is this sidebar that includes search filters to allow you to refine your search by many different field options. Pretty much all the different options, all the different fields that are relevant to costume objects are listed here, and you can see there are quite a few. So for example, if you wanted to see a particular sleeve type, for example, you could narrow it down to results that have been identified as having that sleeve type. Now, it's important to note that with this particular collection, not all objects in the collection have been cataloged in a way that has all this detailed metadata. So a lot of times it's kind of, the best searches are back and forth between keyword searches and using these filters to take advantage of both of those approaches until the cataloging is filled in to have more items, have all of these different structured fields identified. It's not going to be as full of results. If I want to get rid of any of these filters at any time, I can go back to where that was selected and click to have the drop-down appear again, and instead of choosing that option, choose the option to remove the filter. And this will take me back to, in this case, having all of the items selected. Let's see another example for this. So for example, if I go down here and I say, okay, well, let's, under color main, I'll select black. Okay, we've got a lot of black dresses, black objects, so this only narrows it down to 176 items. That's still a lot. Let's keep narrowing. Maybe I go down and I say, okay, well, again, just scrolling through here so you can see all the different options. Well, maybe I say, okay, I only want dresses, so I will, from work type, I'm going to select dress. That narrows it down to 50. And I want you to see here how, as you narrow it down, it's showing you how many objects are available at that point in your search. Let's narrow it down some more. Maybe we can see here what we've already selected. If I keep going down, maybe, well, now let's choose something closer to the top here. Let's do temporal coverage. That is the time period. So this is set up to be by decades. Let's say 1910s. Okay, and so now that gets me down to 9 results. That's kind of a more reasonable amount to scroll through and see what options are available. I'll show you here that at the bottom of any of these search result pages, you can see that there are links to different output formats. So from here you could click, for example, to download a CSV spreadsheet of these different objects, the data for those objects, and it's also available in RDF, XML, JSON, some other formats here. But yeah, let's go back up and let's say, okay, I'm going to remove the filter for the time period. So let's go back down here and say where it's showing 1910s, I'm going to click to remove the filter. Let's see, what if I were to say I only wanted dresses that have a train? So that's going to be under the length. And I can see, oh, there's only one. Let's see what it is. And here we have a lovely black silk dress with a train. So now once you find a result that you want to find out more about, you can click on either the title or the thumbnail to go to the full page for the item. So that's what we're going to look at next. For each item's display page, first of all, at the top of the screen, this is what's called the universal viewer. That basically any kind of different image file or text file types that are attached, for example, PDF, that are attached to this item will be shown here. And so on the left, you're going to see thumbnails for all the different images of this object. And then in the main frame, you'll see the full image plus a little kind of window that shows you how much it is zoomed in. And so from here, I can use the plus and minus to zoom in a bunch on that image. I can drag it to move it around. If I wanted to rotate it, I could do that with this rotate icon. And you can see in this little window on the bottom right, it's showing me the box of showing me how much I am zoomed in. So that has some nice features to be able to zoom in on details of high resolution photographs. Also, where there are many photographs, I can use these next and previous arrows to more quickly kind of, go in order through all the different images. As I scroll down, we'll see that there's a tabbed section that what is displayed by default is just a brief record that has just the title. Again, if information is available for the item, a title, a creator, a date, and a description. Some objects may only have, some may just have a title, some may not even have a description, but where a creator or a date is known, they will be shown there. However, if you want to know more about it, you can click on the tab for the full record, and this you can see it's showing the, it's telling you it's the full item record. It's labeling it as the Dublin core schema metadata is showing first. Each element is labeled with what type of metadata it is, followed by the actual value of that. So I can scroll down here. Now you'll notice that some of these are shown as links. Basically, wherever that is a link, if I click on that, that will take me to another set of search results that basically is searching the whole collection for anything else that has been has that same piece of metadata, has been identified as being, in this case, from that same decade. But now I'm going to go back to where I was. You'll see that in some cases, some of these are links to external sites. But same thing with many of these terms. This ties back to that that subject index that we saw in previously. That these are all common elements that, we could click on any of these the same way that we could have selected them from that subject index to see all the things that, for example, have been identified as having a center back closure or a leg of mutton sleeve. If we keep scrolling down, you see that there's lots in the full record. There's lots and lots of detail, which is part of why this is tabbed, so that for those who aren't so interested, it's not taking up so much scrolling space. But lots of detail here. But then in the block under that, we can see here are all the tags that have been applied to this particular item. Plus there's a citation. That's somebody wanting to refer to this particular object, this record in a research project, for example, can copy and paste this citation. There also are, there's also a section here of related items. So these are thumbnails of things that, for one reason or another, have been identified as having some kind of relationship to this particular object. So, for example, I won't go to it right now, but this one on the left here is a treatment report as part of the stabilization of this particular garment, part of its record keeping. The perhaps more interesting part that I want to show you is objects that have been formally exhibited may have a thumbnail like this. You'll see if I click on it. This opens a different item, but related. This is a rotating view of that dress. So this was done with a process where, the dress was mounted for an exhibit. It was put on a turntable and photographed with a stationary camera. I think 18 or 20 different turns of the turntable. Those get put together into this animation where you can see all around the garment. What's nice about this is that not only can you see the rotation, it's set to automatically rotate. If I want to stop the rotation, I can click on this rotating icon to do that. But I also can use the plus and minus buttons here to zoom in. And so these were done at pretty high resolution. So for example, if I zoom in just on the bodice, I can also then drag and drop to kind of get the part that I want to see. And so for example here, once I zoom in on the bodice, then I can start it rotating again by clicking that rotating icon. And I can see the particular details, for example, of the sleeve even more clearly. At a certain point, it does kind of max out on the resolution. And some of these were done with higher resolution than others. But this is a really helpful detail to see lots of different detail, and really to be able to choose what detail you want to see rather than depending on the particular close-up shots that were chosen when someone was photographing it. So that shows how that works. A couple other features of this that I will show you. This is a customized page to show this type of file, and this is actually an embedded view of what exists as an HTML page. So if anybody ever has trouble viewing this, there's a link to see it on its own independent site. Notice that the record here is not for the dress; it's for this this particular animated combined rotating view of the dress. And it relates back to the dress itself. So if I click here, it's going to take me back to the dress. So you can see the relationships to and from the objects themselves and their supporting materials. Speaking of supporting materials, let's take a look at let's move on to the next tab here in our navigation. So we talked about how the collection tab is really focused on the costumes and textiles collection. If we click on resources, we'll see that this has costumes and textiles at the top, but also shows the other types of collections that are visible here. So yes, costumes and textiles is the focus of this site, but there are also supporting materials such as the rotating views that that we just looked at. So if I click to see this whole collection of rotating views, it will show me all the different ones that are available, and I can click on any of these to see that same type of rotation and zoom in, etc., as we just did with the example I showed you. There are also all the different identified names. This is a work in progress, but the idea is to have more formal organization of both creator names and donor names and wearer names, and where possible to provide biographical information related to those. There also are videos, in some cases especially related to exhibits. There are videos that have been created. So for example, if I click on videos, and we can see here is a video that a student worked on a project to collect oral histories and compiled many of those together. So if I click on this, we'll see that this type of page, it detects that it's a video. It, instead of using that universal viewer, it just shows the video at the top with the play button. And you can see there's kind of a timeline here. If I click on the play button, it will start to play. I can pause it, I can jump to different parts in the timeline, and interact with that video as desired. Let's go back to seeing other types of collections. Next up are patterns. There aren't many of these in here, but it's they're interesting where particularly students or faculty have worked with items in the collection to take patterns of them to make reproductions. Some of those are saved here. VCC in action is and you'll see it kind of describes what each collection is here, really is images of people working with the collection. So where we have students working with it, or people visiting, or different exhibits, that's where those are grouped. So they're not necessarily oriented with one particular object, but more about work with the collection in general. Events is tracking mainly exhibits, also workshops, etc., and where there are resources related to that. And finally, interviews. So this, we showed the video, but related to that, those oral histories, that video was showing some of the photographs and the voiceover from the oral histories that were done, but the full oral history files themselves are also saved here. So for example, here you just get a little icon to let you know that it's going to play sound. But again, I can click on the sound, I can jump through it as we did with the video.
So just first things first, if you could just tell me a little bit about your wedding.
A little bit about it. Gosh, about the
So you can get a sense of how that works. And again, the type of data is going to be different for that. In this case, it does actually have information about the about the time and place, duration of the oral history, but also a transcript of it. So those are very useful as well. And that gets us through all the different public types of resources that are available. Next up in our navigation is the Exhibits tab. So here, in this case, it's showing us that there are currently 4 public exhibits. In this case, 3 of these were also gallery exhibits that then a digital exhibit was made afterwards to to kind of preserve it for posterity. This one at the top actually was done entirely as a digital exhibit. So for each of these in this list, you'll see just some brief information about it. But if you are interested in actually seeing the exhibit, you can click on the title. And you'll see that now this has its own navigation, couple layers of navigation. At the top here are all the different kind of main sections of the exhibit. And then within each of those sections, there will be subsections that are basically individual pages. You can go through it. You can use this navigation to jump around to different sections, but if you really wanted to experience the full exhibit as if you were, thinking of the physical metaphor, if you were walking through all the rooms, you can basically go through each page, look at all the images, read through all the text, and then at the bottom of each page, there will be navigation to take you to the next page, or once we get to the next page, you'll see that there's also navigation to get to the previous page. Here, this is showing that with the exhibits, you can embed other types of content. So for example, this, to provide some context, is including an external timeline tool that's embedded here to share other images and put it all in a timeline format. And here, again, you can see that we can use we can go forward and backward and to see the different pages. But this is going to lead us through one page at a time. If I were to want to jump around, for example, I could jump to this tradition and innovation section. We can see here that the different individual items that were displayed on mannequins all have numbers here, as they were, since this was an actual physical exhibit. And so here this page is kind of introducing this section, but then I can see the first dress that was displayed in this section with its description. And you can see that within this exhibit page, it's also including the related resources, really tying them together. So here's a photograph of the bride on her wedding day, and also one of those rotating views, right, embedded into this page, so that viewers have these options all together. And again, we can jump around to any of these different items. Here's a different dress. Again, seeing different details, seeing a view of it in the gallery space, but also the special photography to do the rotating views. I also want to point out here that each of these photographs, each of these images, if you click on it, will take you back to the actual object, will take you out of the exhibit to the actual page for that item in the collection database. So if you wanted to see more detail about that than what was just in the exhibit label, etc., you could see that here. So that gets us through exhibits. Next up, just a little bit left to get through in our navigation here. Next up is the About section, which has a few different pages within it. These are just some simple text just to provide a little background about the collection, have some links to find out more about it, etc., including actually, we've added a page specifically for people who are interested in donating, either donating objects or donating money to support the maintenance of the objects. So there's information for that here. And finally, a contact us page with a form for people to fill into, that will generate an email sent to us. So now we'll go back to the home page. That gets us through our tour of this site. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you will visit the site yourself to check out these different features that have been set up specifically for collections of costume objects. And if you have any questions about it, I hope you will contact me. And within here, I can see the different costume items that were displayed on mannequins, since this was an actual physical exhibit.